I was asked this question regarding the candy Cram-o-matic. Josh Snyder asked, can you do a mathematical analysis on which is more worthwhile in terms of dream shards? Is it the candy Cram-o-matic or the candy boost feature? And that's a very good question, but it will take a lot of steps for us to understand how this works before I can give you the answer. For those of you who just wants a simple, uncomplicated, unmathematical answer, if you're going to use the candy Cram-o-matic, use it at least once or twice every day. Use it 3 times if you can afford it, and use it 4 times if you're a whale with a huge excess of dream shards. For those of you who wants to know the detail, here's a chart that shows you at which point you'll get a break even between the candy Cram-o-matic and the candy boost features. I will explain this chart from scratch, but again, for those of you who just want the conclusion of my analysis, what I've got here on this chart is the dream shard cost of the candy boost feature in the blue dotted line, and then the blue, green, yellow, red horizontal lines are the dream shard cost for the candy Cram-o-matic use, and where they intersect is the break-even point in terms of dream shard cost. For example, if you use the candy Cram-o-matic 3 times per day, we're looking at the yellow line. Then for Pokemon which you plan to level up, from about level 33 onwards, it's better to use the candy Cram-o-matic, below which you should be using the candy boost feature. So basically anything on this part of the chart means that the candy boost is better value, and anything on this part of the chart means that the candy Cram-o-matic is better value. And again, I will explain this from bottom up, but let's have a look at the peak at which candy Cram-o-matic is almost never worth using, and that's if you use the candy Cram-o-matic 4 times a day. As you might have guessed from my previous video explaining that candy Cram-o-matic use at 4 times a day, the 4th time costing you 40,000 dream shards is actually a lot of dream shards. But now we can quantify how much. It's so much that it's almost always better to use the candy boost feature instead, up until level 50 that is. Beyond level 50 though, the candy Cram-o-matic used 4 times is actually better value. But if you remember us talking about candy boost feature, you remember that I only recommend using the candy boost feature at low levels. So until your account is at a point where all your investable Pokemon are at level 50, it may not be a good idea to use the Cram-o-matic 4 times a day. Alright, if you didn't understand what any of that meant, we need to start from the beginning. But this chart is what we're aiming for to see which one's better value, candy boost or candy Cram-o-matic. Now I'm going to preface the explanation with a few basic knowledge you need before understanding how this works. Number 1, both candy boost and candy Cram-o-matic are features which essentially converts any excess dream shards that you have into candies that you might have limited numbers of. If there were a world where candies were in excess and dream shards were in severe shortage, these features don't make sense at all. It is always more expensive to use these features than to not use these features. So theoretically, if you had unlimited candies, for example, by playing the game for a really long time, and it doesn't matter to you how quick you progress in the game, then you don't need to spend the extra dream shards in order to use these features, because both features just cost you more to do things that you would have been able to do if you played longer anyway. So think of these features as a way to speed up your game progression, but otherwise would have costed you more than if you didn't use them. And if we take the other extreme, so let's say you have unlimited dream shards instead of unlimited candies, or rather a huge excess of dream shards like myself, then you should always use both features to their limit, because dream shards mean nothing to you. You want to be able to get as many of the candies, which are the more limited resource, as you can. So this analysis also doesn't apply. Where this analysis applies, and this is the realistic situation for most people, is if you have both limited amount of dream shards and limited amount of candies. but your dream shard is in a little more excess as a resource than your candies, so that you would prefer to convert some of them into candies. Then your question is, well, which feature should I be using more? Because they work in different ways but ultimately provide you with the same outcome, increasing the level or the experience of a Pokemon quicker. To understand the comparison between the two features to see which one's better, of course you have to understand how each individual feature actually works first. But to understand how each individual feature actually works first, you must first know how the game actually works even without the feature. That was a very convoluted way of me to lead you into this chart we've seen several times before, and it's just to show you how much things cost to level up. You should know by now that as you level up, the cost on candies and dream shards needed go up. But the reason why the cost of candy goes up is because the EXP required between each level goes up with each level. Each candy still provides you the same amount of EXP, usually 25 EXP unless you got a nature modifying the EXP. And the way that Dream Shards cost works is that for every candy you spend, it will cost you the same Dream Shard every time, but that amount also goes up with each level. So for example, to get from level 1 to 2, that's 54 EXP, that's about 2 candies worth, and each candy will cost you 18 Dream Shards, therefore it will cost you about 38 Dream Shards in total to go from level 1 to 2. But to go from level 49 to 50, you need about 1000 EXP, which is about 42 candies. But each of those candy will cost you more Dream Shards than when you were leveling up earlier. So each candy will cost you 295 Dream Shard, so that means 40 times 295 is a lot bigger an amount compared to when it was low level. In fact, you can see that as the level goes up, the Dream Shard cost, but also the candy cost, seems to be exponential. But the Dream Shard cost rises quicker than the candy cost. So it can get really expensive if you normally were to just level up a Pokemon at very high levels. So now that you know that the Dream Shard cost is quite high when you're high level, it makes sense that if you're using a feature that costs you double the Dream Shard cost, doubling of 309 is a much bigger number than doubling 14. And that is what Candy Boost feature is. It costs you 2 times the candy to get an extra free candy. Why 2 times? Well, this is how Candy Boost works based on the last fire type event. Of course, this can change over time if the developers decide to change the cost and value of things, but the way that Candy Boost feature works is you feed it 1 candy and 4 times the Dream Shard in order to get 2 times the EXP. Now, normally to get 2 times the EXP will cost you 2 candies and 2 times the Dream Shards, which means the difference is that you are paying 2 times the Dream Shards more than normal to earn 1 free candy. And this will be important. Remember that 2 times the Dream Shard, 1 free candy. That is Candy Boost. So this is important for comparison because now we know that is the conversion from Dream Shards to candy using the Candy Boost feature. Of course, Dream Shard cost goes up with level. So what we can do is we can recreate this table and Dream Shard cost and also the graph by simply doubling this number, which is what I've done. I've taken the Dream Shard cost per candy and doubled it into this column here, which gives me this chart, where the x-axis is the level and the y-axis is the Dream Shard cost, in order for the Candy Boost feature to give you 1 candy. This line here is the same as this line. So I hope that makes sense, because if it doesn't, you need to pause this video and go back, because we're moving on. If this doesn't even make sense to you, the rest won't make sense. Next, we're going to look at the Candy Cram-o-matic and look at the Dream Shard cost in order to earn candies from it. We now know the Dream Shard cost for using the Candy Cram-o-matic is a constant cost, but it depends on how many times you use it. It will always cost you 1000 Dream Shards to use if you only use it 1 time a day, 5000 Dream Shards on your second use, 15,000 Dream Shards on your third, and 40,000 Dream Shards on your fourth use. But that means that if you were to use it fully, you would spend 1 plus 5 plus 15 plus 40,000, which is 61,000 total dream shards, in order to earn 4 type-specific candy M's. Each 1 candy M is worth 25 candies. And we're going to input that data into our Excel spreadsheet as well. So with each use of the candy Cram-o-matic, these are the costs: 1,000 dream shards, 5,000, 15,000, and 40,000. But of course, you can't actually use it a second time without using it a first time. So this is the cumulative dream shard cost. You've spent 6,000 dream shards by the time you reach the second use, and 61,000 dream shards by the time you've reached the 4th use. Now, if you only use it 1 time a day, each type-specific candy M providing you with 25 candies means that 1,000 dream shards divided by 25 will give you 40 dream shard cost per candy generated. By the time you've used the Cram-o-matic 2 times per day, that means you've obtained 2 type candy M's, you've got 50 candies. So 6,000 divided by 50 is 120 dream shards per candy generated. So as you can see, the dream shard cost per candy that you generate goes up with each use until you used it 4 times a day. Then you'll be spending 610 dream shards per candy that you generate using the Cram-o-matic. So there are 4 constant dream shard costs that we're looking at. For players who don't have much dream shards, you might be only using it once or twice a day. Let's say you use it twice a day, then it's 120 dream shards per candy that you receive. For whales, you're spending 610 dream shards per candy that you receive. So what I've done, I've set these constant dream shard cost on the same graph. But before we look at the chart again, let's go back to the table. Remember from our candy boost feature from the start of the video, the dream shard cost is simply double that of the dream shard cost of normal in order to generate 1 candy. So at level 3, you'll be spending 44 dream shards in order to generate that 1 candy, which is about the break-even point compared to the Cram-o-matic, which only costs you 40 dream shards no matter which level you utilize that feature, as long as you only use it 1 time a day. So I've highlighted in this brown background, that is where the break-even point is about, below which it's cheaper to use Candy Boost compared to Cram-o-matic. Not a lot of Pokemon are caught below level 3, so comparing the 2 features, Cram-o-matic is always good to at least use 1 time. I mean, that's probably the gut feeling you got from reading the infographics anyway, because 1,000 dream shards is not a lot. So now the question is, if we were to use it 2 times, where is the break-even point? And it turns out it's about level 15, where the dream shard cost of Cram-o-matic used 2 times per day will break even with using the Candy Boost feature. The Candy Boost feature costing you 124 dream shards each time you use it to generate 1 candy, and the Cram-o-matic 120 dream shards each time you use it to generate 1 candy. How about if we were to use it 3 times? Well, that's about level 34 as the break-even point, below which it's better to use the Candy Boost feature, above which it's better to use the Cram-o-matic. So in other words, if your account has Pokemon that are all around level 34. If we assume that you will never level up anything below level 34 because everything's above that level now, it's better to use the Candy Cram-o-matic 3 times as opposed to using the Candy Boost feature the next time it comes around. And finally, this is the most interesting point I've come to realize when I was making this video. The cost of using the Cram-o-matic 4 times per day is 610 dream shards per candy generated. That amount equates to if you were to use the Candy Boost feature at level 50, which is 618 dream shards per candy used. This is quite a nice rounded end considering level 50 was our first level cap, and of course now we have level 55. It's quite a nice rounded end to this analysis that I'm thinking maybe the developers had first started with level 50 Candy Boost cost and then worked backwards to decide how much it should cost with the Cram-o-matic if you were to use it less times per day. So if we were to plot these numbers onto our chart, this is what we get right at the start of the video. I showed you this chart. You can see that the break-even point between Candy Boost and Candy Cram-o-matic is level 3 if you only use it 1 time per day, about level 15 if you use it 2 times a day. If you were to use Candy Cram-o-matic 3 times a day, it's about level 34. And then the break-even point, if you were to use it completely, is level 50. So if you don't have a lot of Pokemon that are level 50 and you're still leveling up a lot of Pokemon below that, and that includes myself as well, I don't have all my Pokemon at level 50, then full use of the Cram-o-matic is decidedly worse value than the Candy Boost feature. So why would anyone use the Candy Cram-o-matic 4 times? I'm still going to use it 4 times, and that's because I just have a huge excess of Dream Shards. Remember, one of the first points I brought up is, well, you should be using both features to their limits if you have a huge excess of Dream Shards. This analysis is only important if you actually have to decide between using Candy Boost and Candy Cram-o-matic. Now, before anyone quotes me on any of these numbers and analysis, there are a number of assumptions made in this analysis that you need to be very aware of. Number 1 is I did not count any value from the candies that you feed into the Candy Cram-o-matic. For example, I assume that all the candies that you put into the Cram-o-matic, let's say Wobbuffet candies, are candies you will never actually need. In other words, they are worth nothing to you. Then this analysis works. If they're worth something to you, it would be silly to use this analysis because you're putting in more cost on your resources. So for example, putting in Dratini candies in order to get Dragon type M candies doesn't really make that much sense and is extremely costly. You're feeding 40 Dratini candies and getting 25 Dratini candies back, and that would just be silly. The second assumption is that the candies output are always of perfect value. In other words, they are always worth something good because you can choose which Pokemon to feed them to. And I assume that everybody needs some berry coverage for every single type in this game. So I can see merits in saying that, well, every candy type generated is going to be valuable. And the third assumption is, in this analysis, I did not account for any great success. Great success meaning that you get 2 times the candy M generated when you use the Cram-o-matic. And that's because we don't know that great success rate. Once we do know the great success rate, all we have to do is modify this part because we'll know the chance of a great success. We simply have to multiply that by the number of candies generated and then redo this chart. So what we're expecting to see is that the Dream Shard cost per candy generated will go down for the Candy Cram-o-matic. There is no crit chance for Candy Boost, so we don't need to modify that. So we're expecting these red, yellow, green, and blue lines to actually go down in this chart, making the Candy Cram-o-matic better value the greater that crit chance is. So hopefully that gives you a good comparison between using the 2 features to decide where to put your Dream Shards. And as I said at the start of the video, I think most people should at least be using the Candy Cram-o-matic 2 times because the break-even point is level 15. Which is pretty low level. I think even new players would have higher level Pokemon than that to invest in. The main decision for most people is whether to use 3 times on the Candy Cram-o-matic, and the break-even point is level 34, expecting to go down once we know the crit chance of the Cram-o-matic. So how are we going to know the crit chance, the great success chance of the Candy Cram-o-matic? Please help us do our research, just like we did for the Entei event, by using this Google form. I will put a link in the comments section below and also in the description. Alright, let's go through how to use this form. Number 1, put in your name. So I am Brovini test account because I'm not actually submitting data yet. Gonna press next. Now, as you're using the Candy Cram-o-matic feature, I recommend that you screenshot or record what you actually did so that you put in accurate data. Because the first time you use it, you might feed it 40 Wobbuffet candies. So like this, I'm gonna select Wobbuffet all the way at the bottom. It is sorted alphabetically. I had to do that manually, very painstaking process, but it's all done now, and we're gonna put in 40 candies. And have you inputted all 40 candies? Yes, I have. Next. Did you get a great success? So if you're inputting this by memory, you might forget a few things. So ideally you do screenshot or screen record so that you have a reference before you submit the form. So let's say I did get a great success, and you have to put in which type candy you got. There's a higher chance of me getting psychic type candy because I put in mostly psychic type Pokemon. Let's say I got psychic type candy. You may not, you may get like grass or ghost or some other type. Then I press submit. But if you used it 4 times a day, then I gotta go back and submit the second, third, and fourth time. So let's say I go Brovini test again. I press next. Now this time, let's say I used 10 candies of Wobbuffet and 30 candies of Meowth. Then what I do, and this is all explained in the form, so I'm just showing you how to do it. 10 candies of Wobbuffet. Now I haven't finished inputting all my candies yet. So I go, no, I haven't finished inputting all the candies. Then I go Meowth, I put in 30 candies, and now I have finished inputting all of the candies, and I press next. Did I get a great success? No, I didn't, and this time maybe I got normal type candy M. Then I press submit. And the third time, now for the third time I do this Candy Cram-o-matic feature, I may decide to put one of every candy for 40 candies. And this form can support that, although I don't know why anyone would do this if you really needed to, but don't test the limits on this form because I haven't done enough testing to know that it won't break the form. But let's say I put in a Comfey candy and I only put in 1 and I haven't finished inputting all the candies in the form yet. Then I put in a Clefairy candy and I put in 1. No, I haven't finished putting all the candies in yet. I put in a Cyndaquil candy and I put in 1. So this is all within the same 40 candies that I'm using the Cram-o-matic, and I put in Dedenne and I used 1, and then nope, I'm not done yet. And then I put in Larvitar candy and maybe I used 1, and I keep going until I get to the end where I inputted all 40 candies. Then once again, it will ask you whether you had a great success, and you just have to put in which type candy M you received. If you're doing something like that, you make sure you screen record to know exactly which candies you fed so that you can put it into this form accurately to help us analyze the data. This will allow us to know 2 things, hopefully. One is how likely great success is to happen, and secondly, what is the conversion rate to the same type candy? For example, Wobbuffet giving its own type candy, psychic type. Is 40 candies going to give us a 40% chance of a psychic candy being generated? Or is it just going to give us a 10% chance for a psychic type candy to be generated? So that's something we will also want to know for future references. So the more data, the better. Don't forget, you can find the link to this form in the comments section below. Start submitting your data from the start of the event. Thank you for watching, guys. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments section below. And I hope that wasn't too mathematical for you guys, because in the words of Leonardo DiCaprio,
a story, keep it simple, no math.
But it's all math.